Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm DarcyBits. Today I am forging a completely new full 300 card-ish magic set using Urza's AI. The idea behind this is that I really like Urza's AI as a form of sealed where you say, here's the prompt, generate me a bunch of cards, and then let's play. And that gives you a bunch of cards, and they usually are pretty narrow as far as their color because the AI looks at the prompt like 30 times and comes up with a similar idea every time. So not super useful. So instead, if you're making a set, you kind of have to have a firmer hand. Now, I am not a huge fan of saying, give me a card which is this mana cost and has this card type, and this is the set name. That's a bit too hands-on for my liking personally. I want it to come up with whatever card types it wants. I want it to come up with whatever mana cost it wants. But when you're making a full set, it is important that you're having about even color distribution. Now, we could make like 1,000 cards and take the most interesting, wow, what's 300 divided by 5? Like 60? Yeah, 60. We could generate a whole bunch and find the most appropriate best cards from that set and then have our sort of curated collection that makes up our set. I'm less interested in that. It's a lot more work, and I'm a big advocate of using Urza's AI to be sort of fast and pick up and interesting and get to the good bit. Without having to have that much hassle. This is still a lot more involved than I would really recommend to most people. I would suggest doing the sealed thing that I talked about in my other videos. But if this is something you want to do, this is a way you can do it. What I did was I came up with a set name, which was the Smallfolk of Lorwyn. And then I tried to break down that set into basically 5 keywords to represent each color. After a bunch of trial and error, because I ran a whole bunch of tests to see whether or not certain keywords I thought would give me a lot of one color actually would, I realized I really just needed to throw in the actual color keyword. Just doing the color keyword wasn't giving me the results that I wanted. And using just like elves and hoping it would give me only, green elves also wasn't giving me the effect that I was looking for. Or it would sometimes, but not consistently, so you'd end up with, like, a whole bunch of red cards, a whole bunch of green cards, some that are green or white, and then, like, a whole bunch of blue cards and a whole bunch of black cards. You're like, well, now there's more green than anything else, right? That's not what we're going for. There still will be color imbalance because I'm not forcing the AI to fix its color, but I am trying to influence it. So, what we have ended up with is 5 factions that are 2 colors each, where the input was the Smallfolk of Lorwyn, color, faction. And then the same thing again with the other color, and then the same faction. And we did that 5 times, once for each faction, or twice for each faction, really. Now, if you're making a Lorwyn set, there's a bunch of tribes you're going to really want to hit. You're going to want to hit your elves, you're going to want to hit your giants and your kithkin and your goblins, and your fairies. Very important ones. That said, I actually haven't included all of those in my set as factions because I really wanted to drive home this theme of the Smallfolk of Lorwyn. So our factions are Kithkin, fairies, boggarts, because that is the Lorwyn term for goblin, dwarves, and merfolk. Now, I'm not super happy with dwarves and merfolk, but I really can't justify putting, like, giants in there. And, like, I could have, right? Because it's not like a set's not going to have giants. It's not like it's not going to include these. But I wanted there to be a sort of, like, I guess, like, poster face character. Not character, but, like, creature type for each of these 2 colored pairs, which represented the idea of the Smallfolk. And by Smallfolk, I don't mean like, oh, Kithkin are short, and fairies are small, and boggarts are short. I don't mean that, even though I ended up kind of leaning into that with dwarves. What I really meant is just like normal people that have normal lives. Presumably, all of these people have like jobs. Like, there are soldiers, don't get me wrong, but when I think about, like, elementals and spirits, they're like forces of nature. They're not like people. Do you know what I mean? These are people. At least that's the hope. Like, again, I have not looked at any of these cards yet. I ran a bunch of tests to find the right colors and with the right keywords, but once I decided on my keywords, I just put the 300 terms in, and that was it. Full disclosure, I ended up losing one card. I don't know why. When I hit download, it only downloaded 299 cards. I figure it's not a big deal. Actually going through all of them and trying to figure out which one's missing seemed like a waste of my time and yours. So, I did not. We have 299 cards. There's one faction that has one less card than all the other factions. Boo-hoo. Anyway. What this means is we have Kithkins representing the white and green faction, Merfolk representing the blue and green faction, Fairies representing blue and black, Bogarts representing black and red, and Dwarves representing red and white. I think if you actually look at the statistics, Kithkin are more often blue than green, but a mono-blue Kithkin looks weird to me. Like, a blue-white Kithkin looks fine. A mono-blue Kithkin looks bizarre. A mono-green Kithkin kind of works for whatever reason. Don't know why that is, but it happened to be the case. Now, you might be worried that elves and giants aren't going to show up at all, and I think probably they're just prominent enough creature types across Magic that the AI is just going to throw them in on its own, but we don't know until we know. It'll be very sad if they don't show up, but that's okay, you know? Not every set has to have everybody. That said, I was very sad when there was only like 3 Nezumi in the Kamigawa set that came out last year. So, you know, whatever. Anyway, let's see what the AI came up with. I'm going to start by sorting these cards into color, and then I'm going to go through each color one at a time. That's my plan. So let's get started. Now, of course, it's important to point out that even though that was the prompt I used to generate these cards, I didn't actually, you know, force it to do anything. So it's very possible that it's going to generate me like some cards based off of a prompt that have nothing to do with the prompt. We might not know what the actual prompt was for cards after we've sorted through these. Some of them it might be pretty obvious, but others it might be surprising, right? It's like, well, this human warrior that I just looked at right here, what's that from, right? Are there even humans in Lorwyn? I don't know. I don't really think about Lorwyn as having humans. I don't know the lore well enough. It's really hard for me to say. Either way, this is just about sorting at this point. So I'm going to try and go as quickly as I can. But also just about, like, not even just, you know, talking about creature types. Just generally speaking, when it comes... Easy module object error? Oh, I probably clicked on one of the buttons. This mod has buttons that can interact with Scryfall. These cards do not exist on Scryfall, so even though it adds the buttons, which is really convenient, it's not actually going to be able to do anything. So that's how that works. So what I wanted to find out first is just straight up, what is my color distribution? Is it actually relatively even or not? I'm hoping it is, but I really don't know until I've actually generated the 300 cards and counted them. Tabletop Sim just crashed? Tabletop Sim just crashed. Alright, that is it for the sorting. As we can see, we have a few more common things than others. As far as multicolor, we've got only 2 Azorius, we've got 11 Gruel, we have 11 Simic, we have 10 Golgari, and we have 1 demir. There are no Selesnya cards, despite Selesnya being one of the color pairs that we intentionally tried to make. There is no Rakdos, despite that being one of the color pairs we intentionally tried to make. There is no Boros, despite being one of the intentional pairs that we tried to make. What else? There should be 2 more color pairs that I can't think of right now. Oh well. Point is, these ones are the only ones that got any multicolors. But that's okay. Multicolors aren't the biggest deal. What's the biggest deal is saying we have 37 blue cards, 51 red cards, 71 green cards, 67 white cards, and 37 black cards. So, not the most even color distribution, but not terrible. Honestly not terrible. Could be a lot worse. With that said, I think I'm just going to go through the top card of each stack at a time. It would be nice to have chapters in the video that let you jump between colors, but I don't want to just look at white cards for the entire... I probably won't get to the other colors, because I don't expect to be able to go through all 300 cards today. And by the time I have my next stream, I'll have gone through them on my own time and sorted them out. The goal for this is mostly just to look at cards and talk about them and see what's cool, but also to sort cards into viability. Some cards will not be viable for play just because they don't do anything. They do things that require out-of-game knowledge, right? Like using a keyword and not explaining it, or something like that. You can actually see one card's already set aside, Gerard of the Rum's Zombie Shaman, and that is because we don't know the mana cost. Theoretically, we could find the mana cost on this. I think we could go and bring it up on the website because the card ID still exists. We could use that, and we could try and find the data. But if it's not on the card, I don't think that's really... I don't think that's really reasonable. So, this one just gets thrown out. Let's read it just for fun, though. When Gerard of the Rum's Zombie Shaman attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. When you sacrifice a goblin, Gerard of the Rum's deals 1 damage to any target, and you gain 1 life. That's a really cool effect. So, any form of sacrificing a goblin will cause this effect to happen, the drain, right? And it's actually deal 1 damage to any target, not just face. So, it's not... Yeah, it's better than usual drain. But also, you may choose to sacrifice a creature when it attacks. So you have an automatic sack ability with Gerard themselves, and you are encouraged to sacrifice goblins, and goblins love being sacrificed anyway. So, very cool card, is not playable. We do not have a mana cost. Unfortunate. With that, let's actually do our multicolored first, because we don't have that many of them. So that seems like a reasonable place to start. Lorehold Charm. For some reason, that's the name of this card. This is a white and blue instant. A 2-mana Azorius instant. It says choose 1, counter target enchantment. You don't counter enchantments, you counter enchantment spells, so that is an invalid effect. Draw a card. Okay. Return target enchantment to its owner's hand. Okay, so there's 2 valid options, and it's choose 1 card. That's fine. You wouldn't ever, like, it's basically return target enchantment to its owner's hand, cycling 2. That's basically what this card is, which is fine. Could be a lot worse. Cryptic Command. I feel like I've heard of this card before. How does it work again? Azorius 2-mana instant, choose 2. Counter target creature spell. Okay. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. That's pretty good. It's just counter target creature spell and return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Alright. That's a great spell. So both these cards are in the valid pile, which I guess is here. I don't know. Why not? Treasure Trackers is a Gruel dwarf. When Treasure Trackers enters the battlefield, look at 2-mana 1/2 dwarf. When Treasure Trackers enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put up to 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Tap an untapped dwarf you control. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Huh. Nice. So it's a 2-mana 1/2 that ETB draws you the best card in the top 6 of your library. and mills you for the other 5 if you have anything that cares about graveyard stuff. Then, at any time, just as an activated ability, you can tap an untapped dwarf, such as themselves, to have target creature get +2/+0 until return. This guy's not even a plus, doesn't even have 2 power. So they could just tap themselves to give someone else 2 power. But they could also tap other things. If you have like one like flyer attack, you could have all your dwarves tap out to give that flyer dwarfs ×2 in power. This card's rad. I love this card. Gale Force is a Gruel instant. It is target creature gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Okay, we're seeing a theme. Look at that power. Let's go. Abzan Sentinel. Abzan. I don't know my magic lingo well enough. I don't know which one's Abzan. Abzan Sentinel is a Gruel 2-mana 1/2 dwarf. Okay, we got a theme. Abzan Sentinel enters the battlefield tapped. When Abzan Sentinel enters the battlefield, choose 1. Put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You may search your library for a card named Abzan Lieutenant, reveal it, then shuffle, and put that card on top. I have a feeling there's not going to be an Abzan Lieutenant in the set. I have a feeling. But, you know, it's a 2-mana put a 1/1 counter on a creature. That's not... Well, actually, it's an ETB, actually. Yeah, this is actually pretty okay, right? This is a 2-mana 2/3 at worst. Or at worst. Worst? Or a 2-mana 1/2 that puts a 1/1 counter on your best thing, right? Like on a flyer or something. Or something that just needs to break that break point. Like something sitting at like 3 toughness and it needs to go up to 4 to trade evenly or something. Yeah, this card's rad. I mean, it's not rad, it's fine. Stensia Brute is a Gruel 2-mana 2/3 Gruel Dwarf Warrior. They have Vigilance, and whenever Stensia Brute attacks, sacrifice it at end of combat. That's pretty bad. Hopefully it has something else. If you do, okay, here it comes. Search your library for up to 2 dwarf cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Okay. I mean, it doesn't sacrifice till end of combat, which I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but when it comes to AI magic, often it's just like, when this attacks, it explodes. You're like, great, good, I'm glad I invested in this. But 2 mana to tutor for 2 dwarves? That's okay, yeah. This is it's like a suspend tutor, because it can't do it until it attacks. I like this card a lot, actually. That card's great. That's another reason why I wanted to do the set this way, where there's like 5 core like creature types going on. It's just probably going to make a more interesting set. With Slivers of Ravnica, the main creature type was Slivers, and everyone had access to Slivers, and it was great. But I wanted to do something a bit different here. So again, maybe a bit too hands-on for your liking for AI magic, but I think it was a nice nudge, and I think it's going to create some interesting effects. Ludovic's Cryptologist is a 4-mana Gruel Dwarf 3/3. Whenever Ludovic's Cryptologist enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever a dwarf you control dies, you may return Ludovic's Cryptologist to its owner's hand. So, ETB or attack, 1/1 counter on a creature. If a dwarf, any dwarf, that you control dies, you can bounce it. If you wanted to do that for some reason. Which is, you know, sometimes you do. Sometimes you're like, I need to protect my really strong card. So I'm actually going to use the sacrifice effect to sacrifice one of my dwarves so I can bounce Ludovic so I can play Ludovic again later or something, right? Like, there are use cases. It's just not super exciting. Razorclaw Goblin is a 4-mana Goblin Warrior. Okay, it's Gruel again because we're in the Gruel pile right now. It's a 3/3 for 4. Whenever Razorclaw Goblin becomes blocked by a creature, Razorclaw Goblin deals 1 damage to that creature. Okay, it's a classic effect we've seen before, except it's a 4 mana 3/3, right? Like, this would be fine if it was a 4 mana 4/4 or something, but it's probably not good enough in its current state. But is it good enough for limited? Probably. And you know, that's the thing, right? Some cards are commons. This card says it's an uncommon, but we ignore rarity here. That's a personal preference. Redcoat Infantry is a 2 mana 1/2 Dwarf Warrior. Whenever Redcoat Infantry attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn for each creature you control. Holy crap! So this is a 2 mana 1/2 on turn 2. On turn 3, it can attack. If you have no other creatures, it's still a 3/4, which is pretty decent. Nice. I'm into it. Trena's Coercion. Is that how you spell coercion? I don't think so. Is a 2 mana Gruel instant. It says, choose 1. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Sorry, it doesn't say that. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Target creature gets -0/-2 until end of turn. I love it. It's so clean. Either buff your own thing or kill something that has 2 toughness. It's rad. And it doesn't need to give it's -2 only, not -2/-2, because, you know, you're using this to kill somebody. You're not using this to save yourself a little bit of damage. I love it. I think that's great. So far, this pile's been great. Dwarves look like they're going to be pretty strong. Eldrazi Shaman is a Dwarf Shaman? Interesting. A 3 mana 2/2 Gruel Dwarf Shaman. They have Devoid, okay. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a 1/1 counter on Eldrazi Shaman. If you do, choose 1. Create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token. Target land becomes a 4/4 colorless Eldrazi Colossus creature with trample until end of turn. Is that a thing? Is Eldrazi Colossus a thing? I don't know that. I know about Scions. I know about Spawn. Colossus? That's cool. This is rad. Oh, this set's looking so good. Or at least it's looking good for red-green. Blasting Charm is a 4 mana Gruel instant. It says choose 1. Target creature can't be blocked. Target creature can't be blocked. Target creature can't be blocked. We've talked about this before, how this choose 1 effect looks really stupid and is really stupid, and they probably wouldn't do something like this. But considering there are effects that could or have been printed in Magic that say your choose 1 abilities let you choose, you know, as many as you wish, should let you choose 1 or more, suddenly the ability changes. So it's not like the goal of the card, but it has that fringe use case in theory, which is cool. It's still a 4 mana make somebody not be able to block, or can't be blocked, actually. So I mean, like, this could be a finisher. It's not like the most exciting finisher, but it is a finisher theoretically. Let yourself get through. Siege Sculler is a 2 mana Dwarf Shaman. They're a 1/2. Again, it's a theme. Tap Siege Sculler, deals 1 damage to target creature, and 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. Cool. Great. It says defending player, which I think is wrong technically. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can't have a defending player unless you're attacking. Now, if... I need clarification on this. This is one of those ones where it's like, I don't actually know the correct ruling, and I can't really... I can't say for sure. But either way, cool. Tap to ping. Not bad. Hello, Heliod101. Welcome in chat. I'm playing on Tabletop Simulator using a mod that's called, like, Deluxe Magic Table. It's really good. It interacts with Scryfall and stuff for lots of cool things. If I want to pull up tokens and stuff, I can just type their name in the chat and pops right out. Really, really good. If you have other questions and that I didn't understand your question, feel free to elaborate. We are moving on to the next pile, which is Simic. Druva's Defiance. Instant. 4 mana to choose 1. Counter target creature spell. Not great. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Not great. Target player gains 3 life. But that's sort of how a lot of these choose ones work, right? They're overcosted for their actual effects individually, but they're flexible. So this card might be fine, especially in limited. Bloodhorn Marauder is a 5 mana Simic Merfolk Warrior 3/4, sorry. When Bloodhorn Marauder enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you return a green or blue creature you control to its owner's hand. So it's a 5 mana 3/4 with a downside. It's technically a legal card, but you would never want to run this on purpose. Sometimes you can have the bounce turn a bounce into an upside instead of a downside, but if you're turning a downside into an upside, you really want the card to be overcosted because of the downside, and then you get to turn into an upside. That's what you're hoping for. This is not that. It does have some nice flavor text, though. Some of the most creative Marrow clans allow their young to fend for themselves. Some educate their young, and some even pursue bloodthirsty goals. Heliod 101, I realized you might have been asking about Urza's AI. Urza's AI is the website I'm using to generate cards. It's literally urzas.ai. It uses a variant of Cohere, I think it is. I don't really know the technical stuff about AI. I just like making cards and talking about them and playing games with them. You should check out the YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Wild Slumber is a 3 mana Simic instant that says return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Not bad. Create a 2/2 green and blue fractal creature token. Not bad. Basically, what I've noticed a lot of the time is that the AI will sometimes make fractals, and it goes, the one thing I know about fractals is that they're 0/0s. But it never gives them, like, counters or anything, so they're just 0/0s. So it's really nice to see a green-blue fractal that is at least a 2/2, even if it doesn't have any counters on it. Either way, Wild Slumber looks pretty good. Caller of the Beak is a 3 mana Simic Merfolk Wizard. It's a 3/2. It has Trample, and when Caller of the Beak enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target Merfolk you control to its owner's hand. It's an up to 1, so you don't have to pay that cost. So it's otherwise a 3 mana 3/2 with Trample. I don't know why, but the AI loves giving you bounce your own stuff effects. It just loves doing that. So, if you can turn that into an upside, you're sitting pretty. If you can't, just don't do it and hope the card's good enough on its own. Provoke is a 2 mana Simic instant. It says choose 1. Counter target artifact spell. Target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. It's not terrible for 2 mana. Yeah. The artifact thing is pretty narrow. I don't even know if there will be artifacts in this set, but whatever. Spell Cipher is a 2 mana instant. It says choose 1, counter target creature spell, draw a card, you may return target permanent you own and control to its owner's hand. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a card specify that. Sometimes it'll say own, sometimes it'll say control, but I've never seen it be like, you have to both own it and control it for it to be a valid target. Because, if you don't... That's super interesting. It means if you, mind control something for, until the end of the turn and you don't have a sacrifice, you can't bounce it to your opponent's hand because it's not something you own. So they'll just get it back at the end of the turn. Weird card... it's probably fine, actually, just because I think 2 mana if they counter a creature spell is kind of the going rate. And you got the upside that you can, cycle this for 2. Okay, it's not terrible. Sigarda's Counselor is a 2 mana Merfolk Wizard. It's a 1/2. It says tap, add green and blue. Now that's pretty cool. I'm into that. That is a spicy mana dork right there. Evasive Action is a 5 mana Simic instant. I'm noticing a theme with Simic is that they're mostly instants. Tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. That's really expensive for that effect. Land Hoarder is a 4 mana instant. Put a 1/1 counter on each land you control. Then draw a card. I love the flavor of this card, but it's very silly. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you are allowed to put 1/1 counters on lands. And if that land does become a creature, it'll keep the 1/1 counter. So, like, if land animation is a theme, which there's no themes guaranteed in AI Magic. I'm pretty sure each of these cards are made, like, individually with no concept of the other cards in the set, so... You know. But if that becomes a theme somehow, which it could be, I don't know. We've seen it once already. That could be relevant. If you animate all your lands, and all your lands have, like, secret 1/1 counters on them this whole time that people forgot about... I mean, it's still a 4 mana draw 1, do nothing, so it's probably not good, but, you know. I hope that's a real deck. That would be fun. Tokasia Springwater Prodigy is a 4 mana Simic Kithkin. Interesting. They're a 1/3, and they have tap, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Activate only once each turn. That's probably not good enough for 4 mana, but, you know. Every turn, something gets bigger. Could be good, could be a threat. It walked a strange path. Its senses were wild, yet it found no danger. What is it? Who said this? I don't know. Muldaya Hero is a 4 mana Merfolk Soldier. They're a 3/4. Okay, not a bad rate. Whenever Muldaya Hero enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Great! It even kicks on ETB, so it's not 4 mana do nothing. Love it. This is great. Great card. Next, we're moving into the Golgari cards. Golgari Ogre. Ooh, interesting. Now, considering this art looks very fairy, I think this was supposed to be a black fairy, right? The prompt for this card was probably the Smallfolk of Lorwyn, black fairies. That's probably what the input was, and it gave us Greenweaver Ogre, a 3 mana Golgari Ogre Warrior. It's a 3/3 with whenever Greenweaver Ogre or another green creature you control dies, draw a card. I mean, that's actually a pretty good card. I'm okay with this. That's great. That's just interesting. Wildwood Fairy. Again, likely fairy. Likely black fairy was the prompt. 4 mana 2/2 Elf Shaman. So there are elves on this plane. Great. There should be. I just didn't use it as a prompt, so I wasn't sure if they were going to show up or not. Whenever Wildwood Fairy deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it. It would be the Wildwood Fairy, I believe. 2 mana tap, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Only thing missing is flying. If this is flying, what a great card this would be. But still, not bad. Deal combat damage to a player. Cool. 2 mana kill something once a turn. Awesome. Yeah, this card's great. Janine, Captain of the Keep, is a 3 mana 2/2 human shaman with Death Touch. Whenever a player casts a spell, that player loses 1 life. Ooh, I love a symmetrical effect. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets you, draw a card. So, you cast this on turn 3. Your opponent pings themselves anytime they cast a spell. If you cast a spell that targets yourself, which I don't know if there are spells that target players very often, especially beneficial ones, so that might not be relevant now that I think about it, but if you could somehow, you would be losing a life to draw a card, which is a normal cost. That's a thing that happens all the time in the game. I like this card. I think this card's cool. Smothered Shapeshifter is a 5-mana 3/3 zombie. Okay. I don't know if we're going to see changelings. I didn't put that as a prompt because changelings are kind of in any color, and the whole point of the prompts were to get color fixing, or was to assist in even color distribution, I should say. So, whenever you cast a creature spell, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a green and black frog beast, and it has death touch. Wait, what? Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a green and black frog beast and has death touch? That's rad! Oh, I love this card. This card's so good. Frog beast, frog beast. Zip Rakdos Kavu is a 4-mana goblin shaman. They're a 3/3. When Zip Rakdos Kavu enters the battlefield, sacrifice a goblin. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. Interesting. I like this. Usually the, sacrifice a thing on ETB cards are just bad. It's like, this is a 4-mana 3/3 with a downside. But the fact that you could pull something out of your graveyard into your hand could be relevant. If you're just pulling back the card you just sacrificed, then it's probably not very good, but maybe you sacrificed a token goblin to pull back something that could end the game, right? Your boulder foot behemoth, crag back Colossus thing. You know what I'm saying? That one. It's not in the set. It's irrelevant. Unkind Boggart. Oh, wait a minute. Its creature is Boggart. The creature was supposed to be Goblin. No! AI! Alright, 5-mana 3/4 Boggart. When Unkind Boggart enters the battlefield, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Cool. 5-mana 3/4. So it's an overcosted 3/4 that lets you find something. If we assume a 3/4 is worth 3/3 or 3 mana, that means you're spending 2 mana to pull something from your graveyard to your hand. That's not terrible. Yeah. Dirger First to Spread Fears is a 3-mana Golgari 3/3. It's an Eldrazi drone. It's devoid of color. It has flying. Flying's a big deal. When Dirger First to Spread Fears enters the battlefield, you may exile another colorless card from your hand. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token. It has sacrificed this creature. Add colorless. Now, if I'm not mistaken, all lands are technically colorless, right? Even though they produce mana of a color, that doesn't make them a colored permanent or a colored card. So, would you play this on turn 3, exile one of your lands, and then have this, pseudo treasure token? Maybe. It's kind of like ramp. It's kind of like you get to play a land from your hand, but it's like you may play an additional land this turn. When you do, it gains, when you tap this for mana, sacrifice this or something. That's an interesting effect. I'm kind of into it. Mountain Golem is a Goblin Warrior. It's a 3-mana 2/2. It says mountain spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. If you have a spell with the mountain subtype, it would cost less. That doesn't exist, but who knows? Neither does Boggart, so anything's possible. Swamp Thirst is a 2-mana instant. Search your library for a forest or forest island card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. That extra clause of or forest island is irrelevant. But that's fun. I mean, this is actually pretty decent, right? 2 mana ramp. Alright, I don't know how much ramp goes for these days, honestly. Perilous Predicament. 3 mana shapeshifter. When Perilous Predicament enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. It's every creature type. Now, we finally made it into this camp. What does this technically mean, right? The way this should be worded is something like, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token with changeling, bracket, it's every creature type, bracket, right? That would be like a proper way of wording this. But it doesn't say that anywhere. That's not what this says. Do we assume that it's every creature type? Is it added text? Do we assume that it is to be ignored? Do we assume that the entire card is illegal because it has broken formatting? I don't know, right? Like, let's imagine treasure, right? You could say, create a treasure token. Technically, tap this to gain, like tap, sacrifice, gain a mana of any color is a inherent rule about treasures, right? So you could argue that what this is saying is wolf creature tokens have this ability. It's technically reminder text because it is a rule of the game. Now, of course, that's not true, but if it made up a keyword and gave it a reminder text, I would respect that reminder text as being appropriate to that keyword. The difference here is other wolf creature tokens will not have this effect. So I'm going to put this in the it's debatable, the debatable section. Okay, we're done with our Golgari. Moving on to Demir. Frost Harvester is a 2-mana 2/2 Merfolk Rogue. Nice. Whenever Frost Harvester deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards from your graveyard. It has Morph of 2, which is useless. So, I guess the benefit of Morph in this case is that, like, if you really wanted to exile cards from your graveyard, you could be like, I'm attacking you with this 2/2 face-down creature, and they're like, I don't block it because I'm afraid it's going to flip up and become a massive, scary creature and kill my blocker. And you're like, haha, I morph it, and it does 2 damage to you, which is how many it was going to do anyway, but I get to exile cards from my graveyard, which is generally considered a bad thing. So, It's a pretty cool 2-mana 2/2. And that's it. That's all of our multicolored cards. I think we'll probably go for another half an hour. So, well, however much we've finished by that time is how much we've finished by that time. All right. I'm going to go through each of these piles. The first card, the first card, the first card, the first card, the first card. Because I want to get more variety. Going through every single card of Golgari and whatever, Gruel, was a little bit draining, so I want to keep things fresh. We have a blue 3-mana instant called Runaway. Return target non-land permanent you own and control to your hand. Brackets, you may choose new targets for that permanent. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Huh? Cool. Rock Melt Rally is a 2-mana Goblin Warrior. It is a 2/1. It can't block, and it can't block if you have no land cards in hand. So, it's a 2-mana 2/1 that can't block. It's bad. But hey, it's a goblin. Maybe you'll have goblin synergy. Who knows? Keen Sight Gull is a 3-mana merfolk. Can't you tell? Whenever you cast a creature spell, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Honestly, that's pretty good. It doesn't even have to, like, attack or anything. Cool. I didn't say this before, but it is a 3-mana 2/2 Merfolk. No, this card's rad. I'm into this. This card's cool. I don't know why it's a Merfolk, but cool. Ooh, we have some flavor text. She waits to the side of the main path, blocking its path while keeping watch on those who seek to follow it. I think the Keen Sight Gull is hiding in that tree or something and watching these birds on the path. That's my headcanon. Nope. Moving on to the next pile. Cathar's Blessing is a 2-mana instant. It's white. It says choose one, destroy all non-land creatures. That's pretty good. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That is also good. This card's actually great. Love the flexibility. Also just a really powerful Wrath. And black. Crystalline Wind, a 2-mana black instant that says choose one, destroy target non-creature permanent. So lands and artifacts and enchantments. You know, honestly, if artifact and enchantment removal could remove lands, I feel like I'd put them in my decks more often. So often I'm like, I can't justify putting enchantment removal in my deck. How often am I going to run into an enchantment? But if it could hit a land, I'm always going to see lands. Target player discards a card. Target player discards a card. So, cool. That first mode's really good. The other modes are probably irrelevant. Wash Away. This is a real card name, I think. 4-mana blue instant. Counter target spell once its control pays 2. Fair enough. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Dang, that's great. It's 4 mana. I don't know if that's a lot for this effect, but it's got 2 effects. They're both good. Nice. Go on, squirrel! That's really funny to me. I didn't see that coming. Go on, Squirrel is a 2-mana instant. It costs 2 red. It has kicker of 1 and a red. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. If it was a goblin, it gained haste until end of turn. It gained haste until end of turn. Not it gains, it gained. I don't know what that means. Also, the kicker doesn't do anything. If you had like an effect that was like whenever you pay a kicker cost, do something, I guess that's a use case, but otherwise, that's funny. I don't think that's illegal. I think that's perfectly fine. Green, Inquisitor's Judgment, a 3-mana green instant that says choose one. Put a 1/1 counter on up to 3 target creatures. Not bad. Target player mills 3 cards. Probably not relevant, but hey, if it wins you the game, right? Dutiful Cadet is a 2-mana Kithkin 1/1 creature. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may have Dutiful Cadet gain indestructible until end of turn. And it is followed by the accurate description of indestructible. Let me take this. I am as a stethoscope to hear their throats. Gaia, Kithkin Queen. I hope we see Gaia, Kithkin Queen in the set somewhere. Anyway, again, I don't know if we're going to see any enchantments because they're pretty rare for the deck builder to come up with them on their own. 2, even if we do, giving a 1/1 indestructible is not that big a deal. Like, it's fine, I guess. Anyway, again, we're here not to judge, but to assess viability. Ember Heart Imp is a 3-mana imp. It is a 1/2. It is black. It says Ember Heart Imp enters the battlefield tapped. Whenever Ember Heart Imp deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards from that player's graveyard. And then it has escape 4. Exile 4 escape 4 mana, comma, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. So, it's a 3 mana 1/2, which is pretty bad. It enters tapped, which is pretty bad. And it can exile cards from your opponent's graveyard, which might be relevant if my opponent has escape or something. I don't know, it's like counter escape, kind of ish. Huh. Wind's Reap is a 1 mana Merfolk blue 1/1. I need to find a better way of saying what cards are. This picture is something else. It has flying. Wind's Reap can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. So it's immune to reach. That's cool. When Wind's Reap enters the battlefield, sacrifice it, unless you pay 1 for each creature it's blocking. Which is none. I mean, here's the thing, right? You know how sometimes a card will say, like, return a card from your graveyard to the battlefield attacking? That means it would enter the battlefield attacking. So if you had an effect that was like, sacrifice unless you pay 1, you know, if it's attacking, then you'd be like, that's irrelevant. And then you'd run into that situation. You go, dang it, it sacrifices itself because I didn't have the red mana to pay or whatever. So if there's an effect that's like, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield blocking a creature? I mean, look, Magic's a wild game. Theoretically, that could exist. This is why I take forever to review the set. Yeah, cool. I think that's legal. Volcanic Fury is a 4 mana red instant that requires 2 red pips. Volcanic Fury deals 4 damage to any target. It has Retrace. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land. Honestly, it can go face, it can go creature, it can be cast a second time. That's not terrible. It's like 4 mana, transform one of your lands into a 4 mana spell that has this effect. That could be a lot worse. Restless Merfolk is a 3 mana Merfolk. It's a 2/2, it's green. Whenever you cast a spell that's both green and white, you may return Restless Merfolk to its owner's hand. So, first of all, not a good effect anyway. Second of all, I don't know if Merfolk was intended to be a green-blue faction, and it's giving you a quote-unquote benefit. It's giving you an effect. Not necessarily a benefit, it's giving you an effect that cares about green and white. Also, there's just no green and white cards in the entire set. We've already proven this, because this is all of the multicolored cards. So, yay! When the Restless became commonplace, Merfolk saw their village fall, and their livelihoods extinguished. They left Lorwyn, and sought shelter elsewhere. Baron's Appeal is a 1 mana white instant. Exile the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. It's 1 mana mill 1. Cool. Skirk Ridge Reaver is a 1 mana 1/1 black zombie. Whenever Skirk Ridge Reaver enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice it. If you do, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. That's honestly not that bad. That's like kind of a cool effect, right? It means you could use it as a 1 mana, just kill something that has 1 toughness. You could use it as 1 mana, it goes on the battlefield, it hangs out, you don't sacrifice it. Then, when it attacks, this is before damage, mind you. When it attacks, you can say, you know what? I'm going to have this guy attack that creature, right? It's kind of like being able to ping something, but you have to sacrifice to ping. You know? Yeah! That's legit. I'm into that. It's not great, but that's okay. Gotta have some not great cards. That's what makes a set interesting, I guess. Seagate Portal Mage is a 5 mana vanilla 3/3 blue merfolk wizard. What was I saying about having cards that aren't great in a set? Her plans to travel beyond the portals brought a pair of mage rings into her possession. She had the impression they would make excellent protection in a fight, and hoped she wouldn't regret not finishing the quest sooner. I don't know what that means. The agoraphobic giant? Hey! We've got a giant in the set! Look at that. I told you elves and giants would show up. The agoraphobic giant is a 5-mana, 4/3 red giant warrior. It costs 2 red pips. When the agoraphobic giant enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. In the mountain passes, they run and fight and then laugh, convinced that no one is watching. I love that. That's great. The giants, they're so big, they don't even like notice the little people. Blinking Riverfish is a 4-mana merfolk. It's a 2/2. It says, when Blinking Riverfish enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target merfolk. So it puts a counter on something, but it has to be a merfolk, as opposed to like another card we saw that just put it on any creature you own. And it's a 4-mana 2/2. Wow. There are some good cards in this set, but I think the set as a whole is leaving a lot to be desired. Humble Kithkin is a 1-mana 1/1. It's vanilla. The battle cry of the Thaumark. Purglet. Okay. Is a 2-mana instant. It's devoid, so it has no color, but it does cost black. Choose a color. Choose target creature an opponent controls. It gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures of that color that player controls. I don't know if this is the way that this effect would be worded, but I'm into it, right? It's like target creature gets -X, where X is the number of creatures, the largest number of creatures that share the same color that player controls, right? Like, I love this. I think this card's cool. It's a 2-mana kill spell that isn't always going to be great. It's like Flunk, right? Like, this is Flunk. I love this. That's a great card. I don't know if it's a great card, but I think it's a fun card. It's a well-designed card. It's an interesting card. Yavimaya Merfolk. Weird that this is the blue one and not the green one, but okay. For blue and blue, so a 2-mana 1/2 blue Merfolk Wizard. You get a 1/2 Merfolk Wizard. It has tap, target Merfolk you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Okay, cool. You know, it can buff something by its power. It's like reverse enlist. I'm into it. Sultai Executioner. Sultai's been coming up a lot in this game. I don't know. 1-mana 1/1 Goblin. It has haste. Whenever you sacrifice a Goblin, exile it. If you do, exile the top card of your library. Cool. Everlasting Flame is a 2-mana instant. It's green. Everlasting Flame deals 3 damage to any target. You gain 3 life. Sweet. That's great. That's like improved Lightning Strike in green. Okay. Force of Will. That's a real card, right? 1-mana white instant. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So far, so good. Let's see what else it says. If a permanent is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. I guess if a creature was like, when a 1/1 counter is put on me, sacrifice myself. Either way, it's a 1-mana 1/1 that puts a counter on all of your creatures. This card's rad, so whatever if that second line doesn't make sense. Thought Smashing is a 2-mana sorcery. It costs black and black. Target player reveals their hand, and you choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Great. I don't know if there's a card with this exact, like, I don't know if this is a functional reprint or not, but it's an effect people like. I don't do a lot of those discard effects, but I hear they're good. Blistering Temper is a 2-mana instant. Counter target creature spell. Its controller mills 4 cards. To mill a card, they exile it and discard it. That's not true. Okay. They may search their library and or graveyard for a card named Blistering Temper, put it into their hand, then shuffle. How is it that the smallest pile is the one that seems to have, like, the most not working cards? I should take that back. Blue and black have the same number of cards in the set, so, but anyway. Tormentor's Insight, 2-mana instant, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a red or white creature card from among them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library, in any order. If you reveal a creature card this way, it gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, you can't give a card haste. You could a card could perpetually gain haste if we were playing Alchemy, but just a card gaining haste, not going to happen. The card could be exiled at the beginning of the next end step, though. Which to me means basically you have to play it before the beginning of the next end step. So it's basically 2-mana exile the cards and you can play them this turn. Alright. Weird. Sunbreaker Aqua is a 1-mana 1/1 creature merfolk warrior. That's it. Perun, Heir of Greypelt, is a 1-mana 1/1 human soldier. Tap. Target dwarf gets +0/+2 until end of turn. Huh. I quite like that effect. I wish it was on a dwarf, but that's okay. Cultist of Rakdos. Don't know what Rakdos is doing here. 3-mana zombie wizard. Whenever you cast a spell that's both black and red, target player loses 2 life. It's otherwise a 2/1. As we mentioned previously, there are no Rakdos spells in the deck. There's no red and black spells in the set. So, not going to come up. But, okay. I guess if you're playing, like, in a standard rotation, could be relevant, I suppose. Meh. Skypiercer is a 2-mana merfolk soldier. There's a lot of, like, 2 devotion cards in this set, weirdly. I'm into it. Skypiercer costs blue and blue. It's a merfolk soldier. It's a 2/2. It has flying. Skypiercer can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. Hey, we saw this effect before. Cool. So, like, this is our second, like, super flyer, right? I mean, that's a good card. 2-mana 2/2 can flyer that can't be blocked by reach creatures. Nice. It's a merfolk? Yeah, I don't know why merfolk flying is a thing, but it is. 2-mana Harm. Sorry. Harm. A 2-mana red instant. It's devoid, so it's not actually red. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If it's a boggart, which again, if a creature is a boggart, it should be a goblin, but some creatures have actually been given the boggart creature type, despite that not being a real magic. Like, this is the kind of thing where, like, if this was real magic, this would be oracled that all boggarts are goblins, but we can't do that here, so yep. If it's a boggart, you may cast it without paying its mana cost, if you pay 1 more to cast it. Okay, so first of all, it super doesn't matter that it only affects boggarts, because guess what? That effect doesn't mean anything. The creature gets +3/+3. It's already on the battlefield. It's not a spell. It's not a card in your hand. You may cast it without paying its mana cost if you pay 1 more to cast it. I don't even know what that means. 1 more to cast it? If you're paying 1 more, that implies you're paying its cost, right? Bogarts seek to enrich themselves by disempowering others. Isn't that nice? I'm not entirely sure if that's a legal card or not. Put that in the maybe pile. Beachcomber is a 2-mana, 2/1 green merfolk. Whenever Beachcomber becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand. Woo! Wall of Skemfar. Ooh, it's not a wall. Wall of Skemfar is a 1-mana instant with Defender and Shroud. That sucks. If this was actually like, I don't know, like a 1/3 wall, that would be cool. Just a little like 1-mana, sorry, 0/3. Like a 1-mana 0/3 wall with Shroud. I'd be super into that. Because I like walls for some reason. I think they're fun. I just think they're cool. Shadow Merchant. Ooh, look at these like black fairies. They are shapeshifters, but let's ignore that. Shadow Merchant is a 3-mana 2/2 black shapeshifter. You may have Shadow Merchant enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has, whenever this creature enters the battlefield, it becomes a 3/3 black beast creature until end of turn. Okay, I don't know what the flavor of this card is, but the idea... This is one of my favorite things about AI Magic, is it gets you thinking about cards in ways you've never considered before, right? Like, I legitimately think you could make a really cool custom set using AI as a tool. It would still be a custom set because you're curating the whole thing, you're probably making your own cards, you're just being inspired by the AI. You're not being beholden to it like I am. But, like, the idea of saying, like, this card's flavor is that it enters the battlefield as a copy of someone else on the battlefield, but the turn it enters the battlefield, it's like a dog? Like, it's The Thing. It's like John Carpenter's The Thing, right? It's like you enter the battlefield as a copy of some guy, but you're not that guy yet. Right now, you're just a little dog. You're just like a 1/1 white dog creature. And then end of turn, you become that thing! Like, I don't think that would actually... Like, that's a bad comparison, but, like... I don't know what the use case of that is. Like, you still have to tell everyone at the table what it's a copy of. If anything, it just makes you a little bit, like, easier to remove, or, like, harder to remove, I guess. But it's until end of turn. So, like, it super doesn't matter anyway. I guess it's possible that if this had, like, flash, this could be interesting. Because you could, like, flash in, chump block something as a 3/3, then end of turn, turn into, like, a 1/1 or something. I guess also if you had a creature that was, like, enter the battlefield, deal damage equal to your power, then, like, it's 3 instead of... I need to stop overanalyzing this card. It's a really cool idea. I think, A, I don't know what the use cases are, and if you could come up with some interesting use cases, this would be an interesting effect. And B, I think it has some really interesting flavor implications, so you could come up with some really interesting flavor implications for this effect. That is all beside the point. That is me saying this effect is interesting. You should use it in your custom Magic designs. The smell of death hangs in the air, making even the faintest breeze intoxicating. That's really good. That's really good flavor, the text there. Fairy Magus is a 1-mana 1/1 fairy. When Fairy Magus enters the battlefield, draw a card. When you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a fairy card, you may pay 1. If you do, put that card into your hand. Honestly, I was so ready for that sentence to end with, if you do, exile it. You know? Like, This is a cool effect, actually. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that draws you a card. If you cast a spell on your opponent's turn, you get to spend 1 to draw a card if the top card of your deck is a fairy. It's like a pretty good payoff for fairy tribal. That's not just like your fairies are bigger, but like your fairies are more... Your deck runs smoother if you have fairies. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I don't know if there's... I mean, I keep talking about how like I don't know if there's enough cards to make a certain archetype function. If you're playing sealed, if you're playing limited, if you're playing draft with this set, the colors are super skewed. They really, really are. But if you're playing constructed, it's entirely possible that you could make actual functional decks because you don't need, 60 cards of each color. You just need enough good ones, right? Now, hopefully there's options so that not everybody's playing the same, the same decks, but I mean, that happens in metas anyway, right? I think that this set really says, hey, I want to be constructed, I don't want to be limited. And that's fine. It's not what I'm going for, but that's fine. Like, again, I think that Urza's AI is really good at sealed. So just make a sealed draft pack, a fake draft pack in Urza's AI, and play it. Instead of trying to make a set and then draft from that set. Maybe once this set's done, B and I will play some constructed with it. It always feels like a bit of a disappointment because you don't get to really showcase all of the cool, interesting cards in the set. You're only showcasing like 6 interesting cards of the set. I guess like 12, like 6 for each of us. 4 copies of each of those 6. But, yeah. Anyway, I'm really, really rambling at this point. Hopefully people have been enjoying this. Goblin Mind Runners is a 1-mana 1/1 with haste. It's a goblin. When it enters the battlefield, target player sacrifices a land. That's actually busted. Holy crap, I love this card. It's really good. Shepherd of the Greens is a 3-mana 3/3 fairy warrior. It has trample. Shepherd of the Greens can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Shepherd of the Greens has reach as long as you control a forest. Okay. Nice. It doesn't actually have flying. It has trample and reach. I like this card. I think that's fun. Divine Oration is a 2-mana instant. It's white, exile target, attacking or blocking creature, renounce any number of permanents. I don't think renounce is a real keyword. I think I have seen the AI use the word renounce before, which is disappointing, because, like, give me a keyword. My favorite thing in the AI is when it makes up a keyword and comes up with one. When I was doing some tests, a card came up with the keyword shimmer, which meant it couldn't be blocked by creatures with power less than it or something like that, or power greater than it. And I was like, that's a cool keyword. That's great. I know what that, like, you explained it. Renounce any number of permanents sounds like exile them or put them into your hand or, like, whatever. It's the kind of effect that it's an any number, so you could just say you must choose 0 because we don't know the implications of choosing a different number than 0. And therefore it's a 2-mana exile target attacking your black creature. I would say this card is legal to play in your deck, but you cannot choose to renounce any number of permanents other than 0 because we don't know what that means. And lastly, because we're over time and it is time to move on, we will look at the rest of these cards some other day. Sengir Reaver is a 4-mana 2/3 black spirit. Whenever Sengir Reaver deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, you may search your library for up to 2 planes, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. It's a 4-mana 2/3 that gets to attack once and then it dies. And draws you 2 cards, kind of. Well, that brings us to the end of today's stream. Thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoyed getting to look at these cards and hearing me get excited about dwarves. still not sure how I feel about this format for creating an AI generated set. I do think that if you're trying to be like, AI, just make me a set, it needs some scaffolding or it's going to come up with something absolutely awful. If you give it too much scaffolding, you are making a custom set that has been assisted by AI, which is fine. It's just a different thing. This, I think, falls in the middle, and you can see it's still not great. I think it could use more scaffolding than this and still be pretty good. Either way, I'm going to finish up this set offline. I am going to try and get it into a mod. Probably if you're seeing this on YouTube, it will be in the description, because I'll probably be done by now. I might not go into as much detail as I did in Slivers of Ravnica. Honestly, I probably went into too much detail in Slivers of Ravnica. There was a lot of options instead of me just saying, here's the cards, play the game. All that said, have a lovely night. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining me on this journey and watching the videos. It means a lot to me. I've been DarcyBits. This has been Urza's AI, the Smallfolk of Lorwyn. Have a good night. I'll see you next time.